Hello, everyone. So we are once again back with our the interview series. This is our fifth interview session on the topic disability and its challenges. So today, the guest over here that we have is is one of the special guests that we have. So hi, Simran.
Hi, Jayant. How are you?
So let's start with your introduction. So can you tell me something about yourself, about your family, within very brief thing?
My name is Simran. I'm a student right now. I'm a third year student in Lady Shri Ram College for Women, and I'm studying philosophy. Uh, I live in a joint family, and I'm a Delhi resident. So yeah, currently in Delhi.
So that's really to know that you're a Delhiite. Because I'm also that. Yeah. So moving further. So what do you mean or what do you understand by disability? And in that case, can you tell the viewers like, are you a person with disability or without disability? And what do you think about what is a disability for you? Or what do you mean by that?
Um, I am not a person with disability. For me, disability from what technically we've always been told, and it like from what we've heard and we've been told and we've read, disability in the medical sense and otherwise is always explained as an impairment of sorts or something lacking, which creates like a lack of participation for the person, or like restriction of their activity in some or the other sense. uh, that's the technical aspect of it that we're always told, but I think alongside that also comes the social aspects, which, as we've read in the social model of disability, also talks about how the society we live in is also not accommodative enough of people with disability, which does end up creating the obstructions that we see occur because of the impairment, but otherwise could have been handled if the society was accommodative enough or just
Okay. So
sensible enough.
very
Yeah.
quickly answered, Simran. So you, as you said, you are not a person with a disability. So how did you came to know like person with disability, or do you have some friends with disability, persons with disability, or what is your experience on that?
Uh, I do have people around me who are people with disability, like one of my uncles, my brother is a person with disability. There are friends, but I think it's not about counting people around us who are people with disability. Um, it's just it's sad that a lot of people, most of the people I know who are working in the sector, um, are either people with disability themselves or people who somehow or the other have some or the other connection, or people around them or people with disability, and we don't have people who do not have a disability working for the cause just because it's the right thing to do, or it's something that should be done and is a requirement at this point in time when we're saying that we're developing and we're going ahead in time and the future is here, and there are people who've been discriminated against and do not have basic rights. And then also, if that is not enough to call upon the conscience of people, then I don't know what is. So I think that is what, I'll be a hypocrite if I will say that it was my conscience that did it. But of course, being around, like my brother is a person with disability, so since childhood, I have been around a lot of people with disability because of that very reason, um, which was also a starting point for me. Sadly, I would have wanted it to be there otherwise as well, but yeah, that.
Yeah. So moving a bit further. So my next question is to you. Like, what do you think? What were the challenges in the normal time for the persons with disability? As you said, you have friends from persons with disabilities or around you. So what do you think? What are the challenges that they face that they used to face in a normal time?
I think like the challenges are at varying levels. At home there are different sets of challenges. When you go to an educational institute, there are different sets of challenges. When you're trying to get a job or when you're doing a job, there are different sets of challenges. Then in the society, when you think of creating a family for your own self, there are different sets of challenges. There are people who do not have there are people with disabilities who do not have families that are understanding, or families that are empathetic, or just kind towards them at a lot of points in time, which is also because of unawareness and uneducation. But that's not the mistake of the child itself, right? Uh, then when you talk about schools and colleges, we're all students and everything, so we know how unempathetic, if that's the word, and how non-considerate uh, can people in institutions, educational institutions, be towards people with disabilities, administratively as well as personally. There's discrimination personally in the classrooms as well, but also if I say that the topmost colleges of DU do not have correct braille boards, so administratively also, and also in the front of like people who are running the college, people who are running the school, there were not a lot of people with disabilities that I saw at my school, right? At least ones with physical disability, there were not many. And it took like 8 years for my school to make just a lift, so we just had stairs. That's all we had if we had to move across um, the entire school. Then job opportunities. There are so many corporates and non-corporate companies who discriminate against people with disability in terms of job, and otherwise also. Then, of course, societal discrimination is very well known. So I think it's not very easy to explain as a person without disability in a few sentences what are the challenges, but these are just a few of what I've heard. There are many that I haven't heard, and there are many that most of us won't even know, because it's not life that we're living. It's not something that we are living every day, right? Yeah, so that.
So, okay, okay. So, as you talked about the challenges, so what do you think? Is giving sympathy or like in giving in empathy to the persons with disability would be a bit better choice? And what can be like, as you told, the issues and the that you say that you rightly said. So, in your like response to my question, so what do you think? What can be like done to bring the changes, or like to challenges uh, can be brought up and they can be solved, and some alternatives or something needs to be done?
Hmm. See, empathy, kindness, acceptance, all of this, of course, they are little, just little things that people in this society can do to remove the obstructions that we only create for people with disability, right? It's not like the obstructions are already there. But I feel it's not just a personal problem that, okay, I will be empathetic and this person will not face issues after that. It's also an institutional problem when we see, um, si- just taking an example from what you told me a little while back, that EOC, Delhi University does not have EOC policies, like exactly framed EOC policies. So it's also an institutional level. If we have teachers who are empathetic, that's okay, fine, good. But at the end of the day, if you're again telling a person with, say, an intellectual disability that, oh, I can't see your disability, so I'm not sure if I can get a scribe for you, or if you're telling them that you can't provide them a scribe and they will have to look for one on their own selves. And that is all because that's what is in the paper of a lot of educational institutes. So empathy, yes, of course, it's important, it's necessary, it's a basic thing that everyone should do. Nevertheless, it's not something that is to be demanded for a social revolution, right? It's just something that everyone should do. But other than that, there are also bigger changes that we look forward to. Some of them we might be able to think, some of them would be better explained in so many books and articles and educational material that has been written under the disability rights movement and everything.
So, okay, so as you said, like there are lots of challenges that people with disabilities face, and we know that there are lots of types of disabilities. We have 21 types of disabilities, and even more that we're
Yeah.
not able to still not able to recognize. So, in that regard, as you said, the social revolution, I will be coming to that point also at a later stage. So, moving bit further. So my next thing is that, like, in this unprecedented and this pandemic time and unforeseen circumstances that have came, that came not last year also, and this year also it's back, and hitting the mostly the persons with disability, who have hit the persons with disability very badly and very worstly. It's not about the person with disability as it's as a human being. It might have hit you as well, me as well, and in the society to whole as well, as a whole. I'm not talking about a person with disability. So
Yeah.
what do you think, what was this time more like, what were the challenges in this times, like, for persons with disabilities?
Uh, Okay, I don't think I should elaborate on that answer because I know too less. I know too little. But just something that I had heard a few days back. I was talking to one of my colleagues at a campaign, and it's an NGO. It's a trust that works for people with disability, and a lot of people with disability there are people who have cerebral palsy, and a lot of them are people who have just not gotten out of their house for days, and just years and years they've spent inside their house. And it was recently, like 2 to 3 years back, that they started going out and they started attending meetings of this trust. And that colleague was telling me how it's gotten back to where it was, like it's back to square one, because it took a lot of time and strength to come out and to feel that you can travel alone or with the help of someone. But it took time for them to get out of their house and to be able to travel in a metro to reach a place, attend a meeting, then go back and then get back into the house. And after the pandemic started, it all went back to square one, right? Because it was back to where they had started before these meetings used to happen. So I think that is something that I had been thinking about. And this is not to say that that's the only thing that is happening. Of course, there's much more. There's also educational institutes. We've had college going on for God knows how much time, even in the middle of this pandemic. We're having Delhi University is having its exam 1st June onwards, I think, and there is absolutely no procedure for how the exams or the online education has been made more accommodative for people with disabilities who are studying in these colleges. They are our peers at the end of the day, and we can, like, I can choose to not study in a class because I don't want to, but there are some people who are not just getting the option of studying even if they want to or do not want to. That's a later question. And I think some people with disability also had uh, might have had to face obstructions in this online medium, because we also did. Everyone was facing it, and it's not like we had transcribers or we had people who were sign language interpreters. There was nothing of that sort, right? So that, and I think that's just like tiny instances from what all has been going on. Not to say that a lot of people with chronic illnesses are also being affected, since COVID is a disease that affects people who already have comorbidities and who already have a weaker immune system or a not so healthy body at the current moment, you know.
So moving a bit forward. So my next question is that, like, what, as you told about the challenges, so what in regard to the solutions, if you can have some any idea what the suggestions can be done, or what alternative things can be done, or what alternative mediums can be used, so the persons with disabilities face less challenge, or what things, if you have any idea about that?
Jayant, I think you should tell me what things and I will follow and work on them. I think it should be the other way around here.
Oh, that's all right. See, this is I'm there to take your interview. That's the thing. So it's
Hmm.
you who would be telling me, getting a point.
Yeah.
Always there to, like. Help me out, Pitu.
Of course. See, if you're talking about, like, I will speak on behalf of people who are not people, like who are not people with disabilities, people who do not have disabilities, uh, because I think that the amount of privilege we hold in the ableist society is something that a lot of us don't even realize. You know, that it is not even the first thing that we're thinking about. If you're thinking, oh, online education is inaccessible, the first thing that comes to our mind is not, oh, how will people with disabilities, or someone who can't, who is has hearing impairment, how will um, they understand what is going on if there is no transcription and if there are no sign language interpreters. Okay. And we all know that there was some rule, right, that talked about having language interpreters in each and every college, whenever something or the other is going on in an assembly or something. And it became a huge thing at one point of time where a lot of colleges were called out for not having a language interpreter, but I still don't see it. And ours is a government college, which is supposed to abide by the rules and everything. I have still, in the last 3 years, not seen any sign language interpreter in our college, let alone all the other issues that come of people with disabilities having to face discrimination, or not having to attend class because the lift was not working, and similarly in the online mode not having to attend class because it was not accessible to them. So accessibility becomes a great issue. And alongside that, it's also the aspect of how are your teacher, like the teachers, the peers, are they even acknowledging that this is happening,
Mhm.
you know? And that acknowledgement, of course, will come after education, after awareness, um, which is also, so I don't know why is it not a part of the normal education that we get, because that is what education is supposed to be about. But that doesn't mean that you don't take the steps to educate yourself or to make yourself aware about whatever is going on, whatever you can do, and how, um, if you are a person with privilege, doesn't mean you just keep looking in that direction. Oh, you're getting this, I'm getting this, I'm fine with it. There's no issue till the time I'm fine with it, you know?
Okay. So moving, like we talked about the challenges, we talk about this thing, the solutions, suggestions, alternatives that can be done. So
Hmm.
when disability comes up as a topic, so what do you think the persons without disability thing is the persons with disability seen as a charity model or as an thing, the people who cannot do anything or something like that? What do you have like on a say on that? What message can be given to the society as a whole?
I think one, I would like to start answering this question by a woman that I saw, like explaining, giving you an example of a woman that I saw who had come as a guest on, I think it was World Cerebral Palsy Day. And there was an event going on for that, like awareness event, and that woman was a guest, like a guest speaker of some sort there. And she came up on the stage and she started almost crying and talking about how we don't thank God enough, because we have everything that is needed and required, while here are people who do not have that and still are doing such brilliant work and everything, you know. And it's an image that I never forget, because um, even though at that time it might have seemed like bizarre and also funny that what is she even talking about, but the reality is that a lot of people around us view disability as that only. It's either seen as something um, not nice and people are straight up avoided, or it's seen as a charitable cause by many people around us in our families, also amongst our peers in colleges and schools. Um, and I think if you're asking about me, the notion, like the, it's the simple notion of how like the human society works, right? There are people who have uh, there are people who just have an impairment that causes limitations, that causes restrictions for them, but there are also other people who cause a lot of restrictions in their lives, who cause a lot of violence in their life, who perpetuate a lot of violence in their lives, right? Um and I think that is why that's how I look at it. Also, I think, yeah.
Okay. So moving further. So next question is that like we have already talked about the challenges and the solutions to it. So you as a person without disability, I rather need to say. So what do you think? What is a gap that is there between the person with disability and without disability, which needs to be bridged it up, and and how it can be bridged it up? Like so, there's an equal society where everyone is being treated equally.
Um, I think a huge role is played by the conception of normal that we're brought up with and that we're educated about at all points in life, at all times in life. That this particular set is normal. This is what normal looks like. This is how normal behaves. This is how normal is supposed to talk. This is what a normal brain is. This is what a normal body is. And because of which, anyone who is seen as someone who's a little different from that particular normal for whatever reason, um, the gap occurs. And because of how we've been brought up, that gap sometimes turns into feeling bad for the person and feeling charitable for the person, or it becomes about knowing why the person is like that, or in some cases it turns violent in terms of discriminating against the person, because of how they're different from you, and how they're not like you in terms of your normal, and their normal is different from your normal. So I think that is also somewhere in the beginning as a child, uh, when we're taught, okay, this is your normal, you need to have two eyes that work, two ears that work, one nose, one mouth, and four limbs. If you're teaching a child this is what a normal person looks like, and then of course they grow up to believe that anybody who does not fit this picture is not normal. And I think that is where it starts for a child as well. There was this one YouTuber who very simply in a 30-second video explained how would I he's a person with disability, and he explained very simply how I would like to how would I explain my child when he sees a person with disability, and like he doesn't feel that they're normal, you know and then he goes on to explain how he will tell his child that there are different normals, and there's no one normal, and there are just people who are born different or just emerge as person, like are people with disability, not emerge, sorry. And that it's okay if there is a difference. It's just your duty to not at least not create any obstructions, not discriminate, and not turn them into charity projects. Like our government has also done it a lot of points in time. Uh, so yeah, that I think that becomes a starting point for this, even though it's not the whole thing, but the gap bridging also comes from educating at a lot of points in time. And by education, I mean not just education that we're given in schools and colleges, because that's not going to help us. That's not going to help us understand why discrimination on the basis of whatever thing you discriminate against is just wrong. It's straight up wrong. There is no explanation for that. So I think there needs to be disability related education also, that each and every child is given, that each and every parent is also given. Yeah,
Okay.
that being a small thing.
Hmm. So very rightly said. You are like uh, the points that you have inculcated and like put in front. So it's really like informative and like very the points that you've made. It's very like what should I say? I don't have words to be saying over here. So moving further, so I would like to like as I'm able to analyze and just saying it over here that the barrier that that you are trying to say that the attitudinal barrier and the mindset of the people needs to be changed for a new society where everyone is being treated equally. So, in that regard, as you also mentioned, that the education needs to be done. So, what do you think? Education is only the tools which will like can bring a change, or there are like other methods also that, or the tools from which the
See, I don't think like education is a step, but again, like we discussed earlier, it's a more personal step in the sense that, of course, it's important awareness, education, advocacy, though, of course, but education and awareness are important, but they can't be termed as the only thing. Uh, when institutionally also, like we discussed before, things are not in place, you know, you see, if you see a lot of colleges in Delhi University itself. Delhi University is not an unknown university, it is a renowned university, and there are so many colleges that do not fill in their seats. uh, you provide reservation to people because they have been socially marginalized and socially oppressed, or right now also for economically marginalized or economically weaker sections. But when we talk people with disability, um, fine, you did provide reservation, but that doesn't mean that is all that is supposed to be institutionally done in a college, you know. If your college is not accessible in terms of the education it gives, in terms of having sign language interpreters, in terms of having teachers who know how to teach people with dyslexia, in terms of not having the proper infrastructure, then of course there are not going to be enough people with disability within the college. And especially when there are students and teachers who are discriminating against people with disability in the same college. So it's not just about education. What if you educate the whole college, all the students are empathetic, understanding, but that still doesn't mean that that infrastructure wise there won't be an issue. That still doesn't mean that education wise it won't be an issue when your teachers are talking really fast and there is no sign language interpreter and there is uh, no transcription for some person and there is no other option for say a person with a particular disability to access that kind of information. uh, so I think education can be one step, but it cannot be the only step.
okay, okay. So you said you mean to say there are lots of tools that or methods that needs to be done and step needs to be taken different ways so the gap can be bridged up. So when you talk about the inaccessibility of the infrastructure wise or web accessibility, inaccessibility, or any other thing. So in that regard, what do you think in the coming future? What can be a more like a model, rather I mean to say a model that can be taken up like a social as a social model or a medical model or a charity model that needs to be taken up that person in regard to personal disability.
I think the like if you're talking about which model of disability we should look at,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to cater to the issues, I think it's like the social model is something that has been neglected at a lot of points in time because in a lot of positions, disability loses its context when it's just put in the medical model, right? Because in the medical model, it's just because of the particular impairment or the particular difference that the person is facing, the obstruction that she they are facing in living their life. But and at this point I think I've seen a lot of medical people who are pursuing medical courses or people who are in the medical stream talk about disability, you know, in that very sense, you know, uh, in just one context, which is the medical model. And you don't realize how the social impact of it is also huge, plays a huge role in causing the obstructions that are caused. um, I don't remember who I was talking to or who I was listening to rather, and that person had mentioned that if the world, talking only in terms of mobility and nothing else, if the world had no stairs and only ramps, and if the world had just roads and places that were all accessible to a person who uses a wheelchair, then maybe you won't see the disability in the way that you see it right now. You know, the obstruction will not be in terms of traveling from one place to another just because of the inaccessibility of the road. So right now, a lot of people look at people with wheelchairs, people using wheelchairs as people who can't travel a lot, who can't go from one place to another. But that is also because of how the infrastructure around us, how the things around us are built. And from the beginning, they've not been built to accommodate each and every one. Right? They've been built to leave out certain sections of people. Um, and I think in terms of inaccessibility, like this is something that brings out the social model as well. And not just this, it's also about behaviors and attitudes. And so it's, you know, like we've talking since, I think I'm repeating my points, but like I've been saying, it's a mix of both obstructions that are caused due to attitude problems, due to behavioral problems, due to discrimination, and obstructions that are also caused because we create our infrastructure to be something that works according to what is normal to us. You know, we do not create infrastructure that is um, accessible to each and every person around us. So I think that is why the social model of disability plays a role in making us understanding the in making us understand that the obstructions that come, the difficulties that arise, are not just because of that particular medical impairment that you're talking about, the particular medical disease in some cases where chronic disease are treated as so that you're talking about, you know.
Okay. So, like, moving further,
I see you smiling.
keep on smiling.
I don't know if that's a good thing or bad, but I see you smiling.
I don't know what happens. Like, I keep on smiling, and my like some of my friends and my family members are like, why you always keep smiling? I said, like,
That's a good
I'm like
thing.
I'm that.
I think
So,
then it's a good thing.
yeah. So, moving further, like as you already mentioned about the challenges, solutions, all the things we had talked about, like it's almost the end of this small interview of yours. So, talking in this regard, as you said, so what is the message that you would like to give either to persons with disability or without disability, to the society as a whole? So, some
Hmm.
gap to this message can be bridged up, or some change can be brought up.
I think I would like to speak to people without disability, my counterparts in this thing that we've created and the obstructions we've created in this world. But even though education and awareness is not all, it is, I feel it is the first step also for a lot of people, because without understanding about the whole disability rights movement, without understanding about disability, and without understanding people with disability, you won't know where to start even if your intentions are good. You'll end up maybe occupying spaces that you want meant to, that you should not occupy at any times possible. So as I got to know that all the people in the interviews before me have been people with disability, and I've been the first person without disability, and have been the first person without disability in this series of interviews. So I would like to take this opportunity to, I think, um, talk to other people who do not have a disability, and asking them to read up about it, to understand what it is, to provide the space of speaking up to people with disabilities, because as in any other social context, the ones who have the privilege also have the stage and the mic to themselves, you know. So it becomes important learning from the movement that has been going on since ages. And maybe more than half of us are not even aware that there has been a movement. More than half of us are not even aware that there is a foundation, like, or there are disability rights activists. We won't know their names or things like that, you know. So reading up becomes important, but so is listening to your peers. You know, you can't just read up about disability and not know that, like, not care about people with disability who are your peers in colleges and schools and job places, like in places of education or in jobs. Um, so I think it's a whole united front, a whole united struggle that is going on in the disability movement. Um, and I really wish that more and more people with disability, me included, read up more, understand more, and stand up more
Okay.
than what we do. Yeah.
Okay. So almost the last question. But
Yes.
the message, as you said. So, like the last question, like if you, as you talked about the peers and your as your friends. So in that regard, I would like to ask what in the case of, as has already been seen, what in the case of we talk about the relationships, either it's your friend, either it's your being the companion, or whatever we talk about in that regard, in being a you uh, one being a person with disability and without disability, because whenever we it's been always being seen that always being a person with disability can only have relationship with only persons with disability, not without disability, or only they can marry a person with disability. So what in that regard, what do you want to say? Because that is
Okay.
also a topic that needs to be spoken about.
Yeah, of course. I think for who like the people who don't know, Jayant and I are also peers at Javeda Bidi Foundation, and I think it was one of the lectures that was with Pratisandhi there that we touched this topic about. You know how like the whole workshop was not about this, but somewhere or the other this topic came up, and it was being talked about how it's seen as a thing where people with disability cannot marry or cannot date with anyone other than people with disability themselves. And I think that's just a part of the whole lot of stereotypes and discriminations that come uh, against and are play a role in the society against people with disability. So you will often see people viewing women with disability as people who do not have sexual needs or sexual wants, and they feel like the marriage of like a father will feel like if their daughter is a person with disability, then the marriage is very difficult. Or if the marriage has to happen, then either you have to hide the disability or it has to be with a person with disability itself. And that also comes from, like, it stems from a lot of things, but it also stems from the family understanding a person, a child who has a disability or who has multiple disabilities as a burden to them. And this also just becomes a part of this, because when you treat someone as a burden, you feel like, okay, who will marry this person, who will end up being this person? But that's actually not true, because uh, not true is an understatement. It's actually really, I don't know how to state it, but it's just wrong to perpetuate thoughts like that, or to perpetuate stereotypes like that, to talk, like just to believe in things like that, and also to make others around you believe in things like these, because there are a lot of people with disability who maybe not have the option of being aware enough and recognizing that this is not true and this is a stereotype. You know, relationships are not, I don't know, how can you say that, okay, I like this person, but I don't like them because they're a person with disability? That's not how it works, no. And I think this notion only comes into play because of the numerous stereotypes that we have around us, and it does becomes a part of what we have to handle and what we have to fight against as well.
So it was very nice, like hearing you, Simran, like on those sensitive topics like of relationship, because it's not only about relationship; it's about inaccessibility challenges. It's like quite a long thing that we had a talk on about different scenarios of disability, what ways the disability is seen. So I'm just hoping that the disability study just comes up as a new emerging topic. The more research will be coming up, and more stereotypical like thinking, the mindset that the people have, that will be breaking up, and the environment or the coming future would be a a society that where everyone would be treated equally. So thank
I
you
hope
so
so
much,
too.
Simran, for accepting our invitation and coming for and just taking out this much time for us. So
Thank you, Jayant, for having me. Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.